guys, my name is Iqbal Salman and today I would like to answer the question for the assignment. So the first question is my experience of using context clue to understand story or article I have read. So in my experience, there is 4 types of context that I use to understand the meaning of difficult word in the article or story. So let's check it out. What is context clue? Context clue are hints that an author gives to help define a difficult or unusual word within a book. What does a context clue look like? So first, there is synonym or repeat context clue. An author will use more than one word that means the same thing. Second, explanation or a definition context clue. An unknown word is explained within the sentence or in a sentence immediately after. And third, specific example or an examples context clue. The text provides one or more examples used to define the term. So, because the question number 1 is need an example, so I would like to tell you guys about my favorite story, and I give example from that story. So let's check it out. My favorite story.
This is the story of the Red Shoes. Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Karen who lived in a small village with her mother. They were so poor that Karen didn't even own a pair of shoes, and she had to go around barefoot until the village shoemaker made her a pair of sandals out of some leftover strips of red cloth. One day, Karen's mother became very ill and died, leaving her little daughter all alone in the world. But on a bright morning soon after that, one of the town's rich old ladies rode by Karen's house in her handsome carriage and saw the unhappy little girl sitting on the doorstep, crying bitterly. The old lady stopped and spoke to Karen, and when she heard what had happened to the poor child, she offered to look after her. So the kind old lady brought Karen to her home, dressed her in good clothes, and sent her to school. Of course, Karen was thankful for such good fortune. But one thing made her unhappy. The old lady didn't like red shoes. She had long since thrown away the red cloth sandals the village shoemaker had sewn. Some time later, the princess was taking a journey through the country. When she passed through the village where Karen lived, the people crowded around her. Karen especially noticed the red leather shoes the princess was wearing. These are just about the most beautiful red shoes I've ever seen, thought Karen. Oh, if only I could have such shoes to wear to church on Sunday. Now, Karen longed so much for red shoes that when the old lady, whose eyesight was very bad, took her to buy new shoes, Karen chose a shining pair of red ones very much like the princess's, and told the old lady they were black.
First example is told in the story that who eyesight was very bad took her to buy new shoes. Karen showed the red one. So why Karen showed the red one? She already know that old lady doesn't like the red one. And after that, told the old lady they were black. So she told the old lady they were black. She was lying to old lady. So because the eyesight of the old lady is very bad, so I will infer from the context that eyesight is mean a person's ability to see. And next to the story.
Next Sunday in church, Karen thought of nothing but the lovely red shoes on her tiny feet. While everyone sang hymns, she seemed to see the dainty slippers floating before her eyes. One day, Karen was invited to a grand ball in the town. She knew very well it was unwise to go to the ball, since the old lady, who had been so kind, was very ill and needed the little girl to help nurse her back to health. But Karen couldn't resist the chance to wear her beautiful red shoes. So she went to the ball, and when she began to dance, Everyone said, "What pretty dancing shoes." Then a strange thing happened. Karen couldn't stop dancing. As if the shoes had suddenly taken on some magical power, they danced her down the stairs, through the streets, and out of the town gate. Away she danced, and away she had to dance, into the forest.
Second example. So, in the story told, then a strange thing happens. Karen couldn't stop dancing. The shoes has magical power, then dance to the downstairs, to the street, and to the town gate. So I want to know what is strange mean. So from the context, after the strange word, it said that couldn't stop dancing, the shoes has magical power, and they dance to downstairs, to the street, and to the town gate. So Karen couldn't stop dancing, so I will infer from that strange is unusual or surprisingly a way that is unsettling or hard to understand. Thank you. So next to the story.
Into the forest. Little Karen was terribly frightened and tried to throw off the red shoes, but they stuck fast to her feet. Over the fields and meadows, all through the night she danced, until she came into a churchyard. There stood an angel with long white robes. "You shall dance in your red shoes till you are pale and cold." But Karen couldn't stand still long enough to hear the rest of the angel's words, for away the poor little girl danced over the roadways, back into the woods. There she spied a small hut among the huge trees. Luckily, her magic red shoes danced her up to the door. She knocked on it. A tall, smiling woodsman opened it, and Karen, unable to move anymore, fell on the ground. The woodsman carried her inside and put her on a cot. Karen looked down at her feet, which had swelled to 5 times their size, and
The
seemed to be
third
getting bigger and bigger.
So in the story told that Karen looked down at her feet, which is felt farther their size and bigger. So I want to know what is felt mean. So because after the word swelled, it said that her feet is become farther and bigger and become bigger and bigger. So I would infer that swell from the context is to grow in bulk.
They
So
fell
this is the
right
story.
off. After Karen rested a while, the woodsman put her in his cart and took her back to the old lady's house. The old lady had completely recovered. Karen asked her forgiveness for telling an untruth and leaving her, all because of a pair of red shoes. The old lady forgave the little girl, and next Sunday they went to church together. And as Karen joyfully sang the hymns with the rest of the townspeople, she seemed to see the white-robed angel smiling at her, knowing Karen had learned that kindness and love are far more precious possessions than a pair of red shoes.
So the second question and the last question is the content of the article or story I like most. So I'm very like fairy tale story, and for the story before like we hear it together the red shoes, I'm very like the moral value behind it. So we cannot obsess with one thing, like there's a lot of things in the world and we can obsess with just one thing. It can destroy us. So that is my opinion, and thank you.